Discontinued is the fourth full-length album from Malignancy, and it's a bit long awaited. They re-recorded their debut album, which released back in 1999, a couple of years ago, and it went off pretty well. But it was about time that we got something new from this band, and thankfully it holds up pretty well to the rest of their discography. And they're a little bit of a legend in terms of being an influential New York death metal band. They did start out back in the early 90s and have some close association with Mortician in terms of their drummer and other members either joining Mortician later on or being a foundational member of that group. Otherwise, they're from the same city, and obviously there is some rapport there. Now, the band is best known for intrauterine cannibalism. Like I said, that first album came after a couple of pretty popular demos. It had this raw, crazy ass sound, and for the time, that first record, it was just over the top at a time where death metal bands were trying to be more and more over the top with their brutality. And this one just had this insane production value. It's too bad that they didn't either keep the tapes or they lost or they degraded, because that original recording is again just insane. It's one of my favorite brutal death metal records overall. There's a lot of those, so take that with a grain of salt. But for me, that this band and like Deeds of Flesh, those were important bands to me when I was getting into the brutality. That was a step beyond what Suffocation had done in the late 90s. Anyway, let's cut to this a clip from this latest album and just kind of get into it from there. So the way that their discography kind of churns out is that the early stuff is raw as possible, brutal death metal, and the brutality and the technicality. It was kind of brutality first, technicality second. And as the production values changed and different people came and went from the band, it ended up being more of a technical death metal band that was also brutal at the same time. And the production values shifted to something that was slightly more dynamic with each record to show off some of the technique, to show off their musicianship, and to provide something new. Now, I wouldn't say that Eugenics was so far removed from what the first record was doing. It was just that it sounded so different because it had been recorded at a time where it was better production values, depending on your thoughts on that. But for me, the classic early sound of the band was great, but I could evolve along with it. With that said, we get an even cleaner sound from the band as they move in kind of a more groove-driven direction. I wouldn't say that they've modernized outright, but you can definitely feel modern death metal listening weighing on them as they push the envelope even further. This has always been a band that have always pushed things deeper in, and so they still have that sound of the early 2000s. They have that groove metal infused thing. It was the age of Pantera. It was the age of Suffocation. And so those things still kind of feed into what they're doing. They've got the bassist from Defeated Sanity here, is quite an accomplished player on session work. And also we get a lot of varietal pacing here. We get a lot of hardcore-ish songs that are a little bit slower. We get some more grinding, brutal death metal songs otherwise. And all of it has sort of a technical gate to the quality of it. So it's all very consistent. It's all pretty brutal. And it just swings by as fast as it can. There are bigger grooves, there are heavier things that they're kind of known for, but it feels very condensed in about 30 minutes, and it makes for a great brutal death metal record, one that is outright technical, but also tells a story along the way. It doesn't fully just blaze by thoughtlessly grooving in your face. It's a sharp result. I was a big fan of it. No real complaints. I think it's just above average and kind of a high recommendation from me. I don't know that it will stick in your mind unless you love this kind of stuff. Like if it was just a personal rating, it'd probably be higher. I feel like this is pretty high, but for a general audience, this is a great introduction to what Malignancy are all about. But to know what made them really special in the first place, some of that is still here, but I would still say listen to that first album or the re-recording of it to get a little bit of context as to why this is cool so many years removed from that, because it has been 33 years or whatever since they formed. Check it out, see if it's your kind of thing. It certainly was mine. This releases on June 14th.